Who wrote James? Yes. Yes. Hebrews, James. That's the New Testament, right? Got it. Okay. Hi, Barb. How are you? James chapter 1. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes in the dispersion. Greetings. Greetings. My order today is make sure I keep you awake, okay? How many of you are tired? Okay. Verse 12. Everybody have books? Oh, you didn't bring your books. Okay. Here's some books if people need to pass them out. Lesson 1 was the introduction. Lesson 2 talks about the trials, the testing, and tenets of faith. Lesson 3, we're going to talk about temptation, enduring, identifying, and overcoming. Verse 12 of James chapter 1, blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life which God has promised to those who love him. Let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, and he himself tempts no one. But each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire, when it is conceived, gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death. Do not be deceived, my beloved brothers. Let every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. Of his own will he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. Once again, we talk about a subject that no one here has problems with. Last week, no one had a problem with being tested, right? This week, no one here has a problem with temptation. And a hush fell over the crowd. Why would he tell us that we would be blessed who remain steadfast under trial? There's got to be a return on investment, ROI. Anybody here into finances? Get a return on investment, right? What's the return on an investment here? Eternal life. That's a pretty good deal, don't you think? Not bad. Makarios, the same word that is used in blessed are those who are poor in spirit, blessed are those who are mourn, all that same word. And we have to remember what is being produced. What is being produced by our testing? Growing in your faith. A perfection, as it would. We're being perfected. We talked a little bit about metallurgy last week. In metallurgy, those who want to make something stronger put it to extreme heat and then plunge it into water. Anybody ever go to the blacksmithing shows that they put on? Might be at the county fair, might be at, what's that island up there by the Straits? Mackinac Island? Greenfield Village, you can go there. As they put it into the bellows, pumps in the air, and it makes things red hot. And then you're able to mold it, and then when you're ready to have it, all the atoms aligned into it, you plunge it into the water, and there it is. Your daddy had blacksmithing. That's only 10, 15 years ago. Or maybe a little bit longer. Yep. Way down in Louisiana? Louisiana. Okay. Now he moves over to the idea of enduring. The one who says the idea of enduring means I say no to myself. I say no to myself when I'm tempted. Why? And I guess we ought to talk about the things that tempt us. What are things that tempt us? Eating? Oh, I never have a problem with that. Eating. Yeah, we're not going to go there. Different. Next. Anger. Nope, not going to go there either. Things we like, yeah. Things we lack. Okay. Now we're hitting a little bit close to home, so we're going to move on. They say no to themselves. Hupomeno. Hupo meaning under. They abide under. They stay. They endure. And the reward for enduring trials plus testing of faith equals patience. That's what we talked about last week. This week we talk about the reward at the end of the journey, because there is a reward. We're talking about a reward for us. Revelation 2:10 might be a passage you are familiar with. Do not fear any of those things which you're about to suffer. Indeed, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison, that you may be tested, and you will have tribulation 10 days. Be faithful until death, and I will give you the crown of life. Be faithful until death. And I'll give you the crown of life. For each of the 7 congregations, there's always that idea that the one who overcomes. Jesus told his disciples, and you will be hated by all for my name's sake. But he who endures to how long? The end will be saved. Hebrews 6:11, and we desire that each one of you show the same diligence to the full assurance of hope until when? The end. Hebrews 3:14, for we have become partakers of Christ if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast till when? The end. So these, I didn't cherry pick these. There are a lot of verses that talk about being faithful to the end. It means we don't quit. We don't give up. Now, we may be tempted to give up. We may think, what's the use? But we are assured that there is a reward at the end of our journey. Who tempts us? Because he begins here, let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted with evil. And he himself tempts no one. Why would anyone come to the conclusion that it is God who is tempting me? Because we're dumb. I don't know if I can find the Greek word in there for that.
But could God make subtle hints to us for good purposes?
Could God make subtle hints to us for good purposes? We're getting into the Greek philosophy part of this.
I didn't mean to do that.
No, of course you didn't. Goes without saying. But that's the questions that we ask. How is it that we are tempted? But when we realize who is tempting us, then we're able to come to some rational conclusions about what's going on. Jean Malik. That is a great verse because it shows us a path. Because that's what we're looking for is a path, an understanding that when we're tempted, you need to be able to have that, if I call it a blackboard, that tells you how far back I'm going in my education. But if we had a blackboard or a whiteboard, something that we could put a formula up there, like E equals MC squared, it explains everything in the universe. But if we had that to where we could put the formula and say, okay, this is what I need to know when I am tempted. The first one is God tempting me? No. Well, then that could go a long ways towards it, because we may want to blame God. Because is God not in charge of everything in the universe? And one may come to the conclusion, well, if God's in charge of everything, then He must be tempting me, because He has the power. No, that's not the way it goes. Tim? Mm-hmm. Yes, I've heard that before. Yep. Who's the king of the jungle? Who's the king of the sea? Who's the king of the universe? And who's the king of me? Remember that song? Okay. Yeah, that would explain a lot. If there is no devil, you know, the one that's on the left shoulder. Because then if you got the devil on your left shoulder, who's on your right shoulder? Some kind of angel, okay? But, you know, that's how we explain things. Which is why when you spill the salt, which shoulder do you throw it over? The left shoulder, because you're throwing it into the eyes of, where do we come up with this? Mm-hmm. Yes. Once we figure these things out, it's much easier for us to grasp this. In Genesis chapter 3, we find that the serpent, whom is identified in Revelation as being the one who tempts, which is Satan. The man said, when God asked the man about this, he says, the woman you gave me, the woman you gave me to be with me, she gave me the tree and I ate it. So he goes to the woman. What is this you have done? The woman said, the serpent deceived me and I ate. Adam blamed Eve, Eve blamed the serpent, and the serpent didn't have a leg to stand on. I just love that one. Yeah, we're always looking for somebody to blame, aren't we? One of the big movements that we make in our life is when I accept responsibility for my own life, nobody else. It's not my fault. On this hand, it is mine. We blame, and you fill in the blank. It's the rich people, and if we can just get their money, we can help the poor. You've always got to have someone to blame, don't you? Oh, that was almost political, wasn't it? Step back. We choose to sin. Period. But each person is tempted when he is lured. Now that does not discount women. You can put the he or she in there. Each person is tempted. How many is each? Everybody. Everybody. Each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. We got that so far? Then desire, when it is conceived, gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death. Look at the progression that's going on here. How many of you have heard about the original sin? Total depravity, that John Calvin said. And coming to the conclusion that babies are born into sin. That's not what this says, is it? No. Each person. Can a baby choose? No. Little babies, when they're born, cannot choose. So the idea that children are born into sin comes from one passage and one passage alone, and who can name that passage? Psalm 51. David, in his poetical license, says, into sin was I born. He was born into a sinful world. But here we find the progression of it. We do not inherit sin. We choose sin. And we look at the lowest common denominator. How many studied math? The lowest common denominator. If you had 128, what's the lowest common denominator? 2. That's little computer lingo there. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64 bits, 128 bits, 256. Somebody stop me somewhere. But the lowest common denominator, in math, you're always trying to look at the lowest common denominator. If something is 15/25, the lowest common denominator is 3/5. Okay? The lowest common denominator of sin is found in 1 John chapter 2, verse 15 and 17. See, when we choose, why do we choose these things? Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all, how much is in the world? All that is in the world. All. How much is all? All. The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. The exact same three things that Eve was tempted with in the garden. She saw the fruit. Good for the eyes, good to eat, and it's going to make me wise. The same three that Satan used with Jesus. There in Matthew 4. It's choice. It's the choice. And the choices are based on lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, pride of life. That lowest common denominator of everything that we are tempted by falls into one of those three categories. If you thought about all the things in your life, you'd really have to struggle sometimes. Well, was that lust of the flesh or lust of the eyes? Or was it my pride? But you can fit it in there if you're willing to do the time. But it is always about choice. Identifying the process, which is desire or lust, leads to sin, leads to death. That's the lowest common denominator. But first it gets our attention. How does something get our attention? You know, my car that I really, really want one day is a Volkswagen Karmann Ghia. Anybody ever driven a Volkswagen Karmann Ghia? Oh, it's just like with the old Porsche, isn't it? It's a poor man's Porsche. There's just something about that car that I love, that car. When I see it, I think, it got my attention. And as long as it caught my glance, I say, okay, there you go. Have I sinned? Caught my attention. But then I say, ooh, I'd like that. I'd really like that. Okay, now I'm getting on, you ever heard of that slippery slope? I'd like that. It's seducing me. So it got my attention. It's got the seduction. Then my decision, I'm going to get that. I'm going to get that. And then I have the transgression. I got it. And then the condemnation. The desire or lust led to sin, which leads to death. And that's just such a simple example of a Karmann Ghia. And just because you want a Karmann Ghia, I'm not saying you can't have a Karmann Ghia. But there are other things that we have in our life that desire, that lust for it. I've got to have it. It's caught my eye. They did make more than one, and I've got to have every single one of them. The process. When James says, but each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Lured and enticed, because what I'm lured and enticed by probably is not what you're lured and enticed by, is it? Some of these things we may have in common, but you might think, that is such an ugly car. It's a piece of junk. There's more Bondo in most of them than there is metal nowadays. You wouldn't be enticed by it. But each person is lured and enticed by something, which comes back to, is it the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, or the pride of life? James, in 3 chapters, is going to say, therefore, to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin. We can define those things which are or which is a sin. Something that's done wrong. Mm-hmm. The commission and omission. You ever heard those two before? Something you commit or something you omit. We are deceived. Don't be deceived, my beloved brethren. Now, let's not go away from those just yet. Let no one say when he is tempted, I'm being tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted with evil. Now, can we blame Satan? Anybody ever watch Flip Wilson? The devil made me do it. Did the devil make us sin? Exactly. He tempted us. He tempted Eve. He tempted Christ. It is up to you. You own that. Don't try to blame other people. We've raised our kids, some of us have. And we tell them about taking responsibility for your own life and accepting the consequences when you do wrong. It's kind of a foreign concept sometimes in today's day and age because we always have to have someone to blame. Sounds familiar. I've said that just a few minutes ago. But understanding that process, each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love to blame a lot of things that I do wrong on other people. When I get angry or I lose my temper, listen, it's not my fault. It's the guy that just cut me off in traffic. That's why I got mad. Is it? No. Each person, you've got to own this, is tempted when he's lured and enticed by his own desire. My desire for anger and revenge. I've got to get back at that guy. No. At some point, you have to de-escalate that. And learning the process of who is to blame. I'm to blame. I need to accept that responsibility. Do not be deceived. When he says do not, is there some wiggle room here? No. Don't be deceived. Don't be deceived. Deceived. Planao. To roam. To roam from safety or truth or virtue. To go astray, to be deceived, to err, to be seduced, to wander, to be out of the way. Don't wander from this. My beloved brothers, every good gift and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, in whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. Of his own will he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we should be a kind of firstfruits of his creatures. What is he trying to explain here about every good gift and perfect gift? A good gift, a good constitution or nature, useful, salutary, good, pleasant, agreeable, joyful, happy. Good gift. I understand that. A perfect gift, teleos, same word that we talked about perfection earlier in the chapter. Brought to its end or finished, a perfect gift, wanting nothing, necessary to completeness. Every perfect gift, that which is complete from God. It's from above, coming down from the Father of lights, whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. Are those blank stares, or are you waiting for me to give you something more? So, only good things. Brianna? Okay. How can I find a way out of that? How can I destroy that argument? Trying to figure out what is a good gift and what is a perfect gift. Tim, I'm glad you raised your hand. Please define that for us. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If we step back, and if I'm only going to look at verses 16, 17, and 18, I might be rather, what do they call those on horses? Blinders? I might have blinders here and lose the big picture of what's being talked about here. If we go all the way back to verse 2, he's talking about this, count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. Because trials often look like temptations. But there's a very subtle difference at times between a trial and a temptation. If you can see it from the standpoint that a trial is there to build maturity into you, and maturity is there because we are being tested, that process. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Well, now we're coming back to this idea here. Every good gift and every perfect gift, if we draw that line from, on mine is the right side of the page, and I draw it all the way straight line back to there, then I begin to think, okay, so this, being able to understand the difference between a test and a trial and a temptation, lets me understand that a testing is there to bring me on to maturity. A temptation is there to take me in the opposite direction. It's there to try to destroy me. Whereas the testing and trials are there leading me on to perfection. Because that's the perfect gift that comes down from above. Perfect and good gift. And if it comes from God, and it says that in Him there is no shadow, no variation or shadow due to change. No shadow of turning. There's no gray area. It's all light. It would, wouldn't it? Every perfect gift. That perfect gift was Christ, coming down from above. And the things that God puts into our lives, how He does it, has anybody figured that out yet? If you have, I'll sit down and you come up. But the things that He puts in there, providentially, puts into our lives. Pardon me? Rainbows. I have a nice picture of a rainbow. No, I'm not going to show you my picture of the rainbow. It was right across from your house, Tim, the other day. Thursday. Friday. I don't know which. But the things that are in our lives that we can identify as being good and perfect, we give glory to God for that. Also realizing the temptations that are there, I say, okay, I can identify that from 1 John 2:15 through 17. Elijah, did you have your hand up? Okay. I thought I saw a hand up. Mhm. Mhm. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Paul wrote to the Romans. John writes, "You are of God, little children, and have overcome them, because he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world." And here in James, he talks about, of his own will he brought us forth by the word of truth. That's a pretty significant doctrinal statement right there. Because faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the Word of God, the Word of Christ, some of your versions say. So he brings us back. We have been brought forth by the Word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of His creatures. And in the next 15 to 20 minutes, someone describe to me what first fruits is. All right, 2 minutes. First fruits. What was the Feast of First Fruits? It's the first. You don't wait until what you've got left over to bring to God. It is the first, which proves your faith, because it's a recognition that I got this from God. I give Him my first fruits. And those who is the first fruit born from the grave? Jesus was the first fruit. Now we are a sort of first fruits. He talks to them that we should be a kind of first fruits of His creatures. Those who are born again, the first fruits. Don't blame God for your temptations, because God does not tempt us. The one who tempts us is the evil one. That's why he is called the tempter. He is the tempter. And to realize he is the one that is doing it means, okay, I recognize that, but I make the choice if I am going to sin. And that is a huge foundational concept, because it means I don't get to blame anybody else. I can't stand before the judgment scene. And I say this, and I always picture it as being a courtroom scene, because that's how our culture is. I'm going to blame our culture for seeing it that way. Notice how I did that? But I see it as a courtroom scene. You know, it's like, but Your Honor, it's not my fault. It's my culture's fault. It's my government's fault. It is television's fault. It is computers. It's everybody's fault but my own. And anybody ever watch courtroom scenes where the judge bangs the gavel down and says, nope. Call Sam Bernstein, yep. No, the judge doesn't accept that, does he? You're guilty. Don't blame me, because I'm not keeping you over. Any questions or comments before we close? Okay. Next week, hearing and doing. No, next week we have special speakers coming here from the Let the Bible Speak from the Upper Peninsula. The Upper Peninsula, that's still north. Did they change north? Yeah, north. So we have two speakers coming down. One's going to do the sermon, one's going to do the class. So, okay, you're on your own. Pardon me?